My beloved Swami, Mr. Naganand, Dr. Akshay, Brother Balu, respected elders, brothers and sisters, my lovely Sai youth, what do you think Swami will be remembered for the most? The rings and trinklets produced with a wave of a hand, the vibhuti and amrit manifestations in countless homes around the world, the hospitals, institutions, water projects, schools, museums, there's so much. Will he be remembered for all his ashrams or the Sai movement across the world? Or will he be remembered as a modern-day guru? All of the above. Our beloved Swami will mostly be remembered for the personal transformation that he has brought about in millions and billions of people around the world, whether they know him or they don't. Brothers and sisters, we are living examples of the Sathya Sai phenomenon, the greatest event of the 20th and 21st century. I am grateful once again to Swami and the Sri Sathya Sai Global Council USA, in particular the organizers of this amazing retreat, for bringing me back to beautiful USA. I have lovely memories of USA. The first time I came on Swami's work was thanks to Sister Geeta and Brother Mohan, and I was asked to speak in Washington. Then again I came a few years later. Swami sent me to address the young adults at a national YA retreat in Chicago, and I had to give some strong, bitter remarks on how young adults should conduct themselves. And once again, I'm here to share the love that you all have. America and Great Britain have a long shared intimate and close friendship, not just politically or economically, but spiritually too. There is a lot that we have learned from each other, and I pray that that bond of friendship continues. Last year, as Brother Balu mentioned, I was sitting watching the USA pilgrimage, and I had a look of panic at one point, and I started sweating. My national UK council president was sitting behind me, so I turned around to him and said, "You better be this good," because they were coming the following month. You did a fantastic program last year. Each one of us has a unique experience and a unique story regarding those lovely, intimate moments with our beloved Swami. Swami likes us to share these so that they not only inspire and motivate people, but usually there is a valuable lesson and teaching that accompanies each experience for the person as well as the listener. I really am but a single grain of sand on Bhagavan's vast shore, mingling with countless other grains of sand, each with a unique tale to tell and experiences etched by the tides of life. Together we form the boundless beach, where every grain holds a divine story, whispering its own truth in the grand narrative of existence. William Blake, the English poet, beautifully put it, "To see a world in a grain of sand and a heaven in a wild flower, hold infinity in the palm of your hand and eternity in an hour." The Buddha was right when he said, If you want to understand the universe, look deeply into the smallest grain of sand. Therefore, if you want to understand Swami, if you want to understand Bhagavan, look at the grain of sand. Enveloped in that grain of sand, you will find His Majesty. My life changed when Swami came into my life at the tender age of 9. Swami has been very kind to me over the years, and some of the experiences that I will share with you are a reminder to us that Swami truly is omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient. We may forget Him, but He will never forget us. Unlike many of you, I guess I needed a little more work in becoming the person Swami wanted me to become. You know, the very first interview that I had with him, and a few thereafter, it was my job at the end of the interview. Swami had a red basket packed with vibhuti, and it would be my job to hold that vibhuti as we went round, and Swami would take a heap of the packets and give it to all the people. We were very close. Sometimes his hair would brush my face, but we were literally on one occasion nose to nose. I said to Swami, "Swami, can I stay with you?" He paused, he looked at me, and then said, "No qualifications." You see, Swami is an extremely tough taskmaster and always expects perfection. Despite my many imperfections, he remains ever patient, nurturing the hope that one day I too will rise to meet his expectations. Now let me take you on a journey back to the 1980s, to England, to a very quiet town in London. In a modest home lived a devout couple and their only child. A 9-year-old boy sits alone late at night, gazing out of the window at the stars, pondering the existence of God. Did he know I existed? Did he love me? Where was he? And why has he not revealed himself to me? That night, with a very heavy heart, I laid my head to sleep, feeling very alone and empty. I had a dream that night. It was so vivid that even 40 years on, I still remember it like it was yesterday. In that dream, I saw the whole universe. And within the universe and on earth, Swami's face was in the sun, in the moon, in the planets, in the stream, in the mountains, in the hills, in the animals. It was very profound. This beautiful smile and this huge tuft of hair. Then the scene changed. And this man with this beautiful hair came in the form of an astronaut. So imagine, Swami was wearing the clothes of an astronaut. Mr. Naganand, you're like this. He then changed and he looked like a barrister, but an English barrister. You know, they wear the wigs. And then I saw this person in the outfit of a cowboy with the Texan hat and staring at me. You know, Swami says regarding dreams that only when he wills it can we dream of him. Dreams come to us in order to grant us courage, confidence, and often clarity of thought. Swami says, when I appear in a dream, it is to communicate something to the individual. It is not merely a dream, as it generally can be. Do not think that these incidents you experienced in your dream are sketches of your imagination. I was giving you answers thereby to all your doubts. So let me be clear here. I am not someone that particularly has regular dreams of Swami. Maybe one or maybe two in like 3 or 4 years. But when I do have a dream of Swami, they are quite profound and very powerful. In fact, after a long time, at the start of 2024, Swami came into my dream. And we were sitting in darshan. As Swami came up to me, all he said to me was, "I like it when you talk." I woke up the next morning and this fear gripped me. Because when Swami says something profound like this, something is going to be happening in the future. Fast forward a couple of months, I get a message or WhatsApp from Brother Balu, Brother Subbu, Sister Vinny, "Please can you come to the retreat?" So there you go. I hope Swami still thinks the same after I finish talking today. You see, I was always very different. I was very quiet, very content to stay in the background. I definitely didn't like to speak, especially in public. I wasn't the brightest in the class either. In fact, my teachers at parents' evening often informed my parents, who had such high expectations for me, that I was just average. This revelation came as quite a shock to my Guju parents, who had probably dreamt of me becoming a doctor, the first Rishi Sunak, or an accountant. And I can see many parents in the audience thinking that for their own children. Both my parents came to London in the 1970s, and nothing but their faith in God. I remember my mother placing a piece of string around my neck before I went to school, which had a key to let me in because they had to work long hours. Like many of our parents and grandparents, they made countless sacrifices, settling in a foreign land, unfamiliar with the culture or language, all so that we could have a better life. I vividly recall my mother praying to our family deity, Mother Durga, saying, "Ma, he is your responsibility. Please look after him." Our parents have always possessed an unshakable faith in God and continue to make so many sacrifices for us, enabling us to enjoy the lifestyles that we have today. I share all of this with you to illustrate how simple and ordinary our lives were. We were not Baba devotees, nor did we belong to a center. Yet I harbored this deep, intense yearning in my heart that often ached. It was profound, inexplicable, longing for something greater, a divine presence that I felt within me, guiding and comforting me, even in the absence of formal devotion. But when Swami enters one's life, nothing is ever quite the same. The orange flame of love permeates every atom of our existence, whether we realize it or not. The moment we associate with divinity, transformation becomes instant. My cousins in London started to attend some Sunday school. I was intrigued. Why was I not asked to attend? I nagged my parents to let me go. So off I went the following Sunday, inviting myself, and ending up in a devotee's home covered with photos of this gentleman that I had a dream of. But thankfully, he wasn't wearing his barrister's robes, or the astronaut, or the cowboy clothes, but a beautiful orange robe with beautiful hair. Now let's fast forward a few months. By this time, I had joined Balvikas. It was thanks to attending Balvikas that I gained the firm foundation and strength to become who I am today, standing before you. Where my school teachers had failed, my Balvikas gurus had unwavering faith in me. They saw so much potential and nurtured me. I attended every class diligently and practiced everything I learned. Put your hands up, how many of you are Balvikas gurus in the audience today? I salute each one of you, because without you, I wouldn't be standing here, and you wouldn't have touched countless hearts and minds of children across the world. So from the moment I started the Balvikas program, Total Transformation, I vividly remember being put forward for the lead role in many of the plays that were performed at festival times. This greatly boosted my confidence and strengthened my character. How clever Swami is at each teaching component has an effect on people's character. Suddenly, my grades began to improve overnight. I was in all the top sets, winning awards and certificates. This remarkable change was testament to the profound influence of Balvikas, along with that, Swami's unseen guiding hand. Any parents or children sitting in the audience here today, please never underestimate the power of what you learn in Balvikas and the transformation that it brings in children. It reminds me of a story that I used to think of and I called Frozen Ganga, and it emphasizes the power of Jyoti meditation. Now in Balvikas, one of the teaching components is you are taught Jyoti meditation or silent sitting. Now I was in group 3 at the time, or group 2, and when we had this very elderly Balvikas guru, he must have been quite old, and when he used to teach us, or whenever he used to teach us anything, we would be very naughty. We were a naughty class. So he would tell you to close your eyes, and you know how the Jyoti meditation goes. You look at the flame, then you bring the flame towards you, you put the flame in your eyes, all around the body. While he's talking through the Jyoti meditation, we're prodding each other, we're tickling each other, and just generally being disruptive. But then 1 year, now this is the time when London used to experience bitterly cold winters, and it would really snow quite hard. So one winter, it had snowed and it was freezing. Now, my parents would go to work early in the morning and return quite late at night. So I would be home alone. So I woke up that morning and I went to the bathroom to brush my teeth. I opened the tap, there was no water. So I ran downstairs, opened the tap, there was no water. I flushed the toilet, there was no water. All the pipes were frozen. And you know, when you're quite young, it's quite a daunting thing because in the West, we take water for granted. We waste so much water. We expect water to be there on tap for us. So you can imagine, a young child at home, there is no water, what do you do? So I pondered, and then the words of my Balvikas guru came into my head. And he said, whenever you were stuck, whenever you had a problem, if you did Jyoti meditation, you could fix things instantly. So I went and sat in my prayer room, and I lit a candle, and then I went through the whole Jyoti meditation. The light is within me, I am the light, in my head, my eyes, my legs, everywhere. I quickly finished, and then I ran to the bathroom and opened the tap. Nothing. Because during my meditation, I put the flame around all the pipes around the house. There was nothing. So then, what do I do? So this Balvikas guru of mine was obviously a fraud. You know, he's telling me to do things that don't actually work. You know, what's the point? But then I felt really guilty. Something inside of me said I did it for the wrong reasons. And I felt bad looking at Swami's photo. So I went back into the prayer room. And I did it again. And this time, I said something to Swami. Swami, I'm really sorry. I think I did it for the wrong reasons. My relationship with Swami all my life has not been one of God and devotee. It has always been one of friends. We are friends. He's my best friend. And I think he likes that. He really wants that. So I did the Jyoti meditation again. I didn't rush it, and I really put my heart and soul into it. And I imagined the flame going through all the pipes in the house, in the sink, everywhere. And then I left it. And then I thought, what do I do for the whole day? I couldn't do anything. I couldn't drink anything. There was no water. What do I do? So then I went to the kitchen, and then something in my mind said, open the tap. And I thought, no, this is silly. It's not going to happen. So I opened the tap, and nothing. And I thought, there you go. He was wrong again. And then suddenly, this noise, clunk, clunk, clunk. And then a dribble of water started coming out. And then the dribble became a lot of water until water started gushing in the tap. So I thought, wow. So maybe the sun had come out and the pipes had defrosted. I wanted to test Swami one more time. So I ran out and I went to a neighbor of ours next door, an elderly lady that lived there. And I knocked on the door to check whether they had, running water. And as soon as she opened the door and she said, "Oh, what a shame, we have no water on the street. All the pipes are frozen." I have no idea how one house on our street, number 28 Raymond Avenue in Thornton Heath, had running water when the next door, the pipes were still frozen. That's the power of Jyoti meditation. When I went to touch Swami's feet, you will see there are some roses put onto Swami's armchair. And it reminded me of a story when I think I must have been maybe under 16. Now, one thing I want you to note is I came to Swami, I found out about Swami when I was 9. The very first meeting that I had with Swami was when I was 16. So there's quite a big gap. I did not go to India. And I must say, for all those young people out there that haven't had the opportunity to experience Swami physically or go to Puttaparthi, I can assure you, when you pray to him with all your heart, with all your soul, you will feel him with you daily. So let's go back to why I'm mentioning this story of the rose. Now, one year, it was my birthday, and the center that I went to had organized some bhajans for some festival or something that fell on my birthday in November. So I woke up, and for me, a birthday is a big thing. When you're young, it's, you want to be spoiled, you want everybody to say happy birthday, you want cards and presents. My parents were at work, so there was nobody at home, so great start to the birthday. My parents had left me a birthday card, and I searched around the house thinking there must be a big present somewhere. No big present. So I opened the card, and it was a beautiful card for my mother and father with some money in it. You never give a young child money. It's so boring. So then I thought, okay, maybe the day is going to get better. It's my birthday. So no phone calls. And in the old, we had those phones with the dialing thing. So it was almost midday in the afternoon, and I was thinking, no one's rung me to say happy birthday. So I picked up the receiver to check, is the phone line working? The phone line was working, and I put it down. Anyway, no phone call, so it was time to get ready for bhajans. So I quickly got ready for bhajans, ended up at the center expecting all the devotees to remember it was my birthday. Because the centers across the globe are so important, you have no idea. For people like me, the center is like an extended version of a family. Here you give us love, you teach us so many things. All the center presidents out there, you're doing an amazing job because you make all the difference to young people like me at that time. No one said happy birthday as I walked through the door, and I thought, okay, that's strange. So anyway, it was time for the bhajans, sat down, the bhajans happened, everything was over. So I turned around to my left at the end thinking, I wonder if my center president is going to come with a birthday cake. And they're all going to sing happy birthday, which is what they normally do, for young Balvikas children after bhajans. There was no cake. There was nothing. And, my heart dropped when at the end of bhajans, you do the Oms and you do 1 minute of meditation. I was so sad. And in that 1 minute of meditation, I said to Swami, my family's almost forgotten. My Sai center has forgotten it's my birthday. And what has hurt me the most is that you forgot my birthday too. Ladies and gentlemen, you know what happened? Can you see this rose sitting on the armchair? He flicked it and it fell onto my lap. And I was so shocked. I looked at my lap thinking, did that really happen? Did the rose literally flip and fall into my lap? I looked around because, remember, everybody was doing 1 minute of silence and meditation. Thankfully, there's always a couple of aunties and uncles that don't want to meditate, but yet they like to look around the room. There was a gasp when that happened. So, when we sit in front of Swami's chair, please don't ever think he doesn't sit there, because he is sitting there. Otherwise, how can a rose be flicked from an armchair I was just sitting in front of the chair into my lap? That beautiful rose, it's dried now, but it still remains the same. It still remains red. So I thank Swami. People may forget, everybody may forget, but Bhagavan will never forget us. I have another story. With my parents, my mother and father, we went shopping one Saturday afternoon. My father got out of the car. It was Father's Day. He went into the shop to get something and he left my mother and I in the car. I was sitting in the back and my mother was in the front. The window was open and it was a very hot summer's day. As I was sitting looking out of the window, this gentleman approached quite close to the car, and then suddenly I felt something quite sharp next to my neck. My mother started screaming, and there was a gentleman standing next to me with a great big long knife, probably about this big, right into my vein here. He shouted at my mother and said, "Give me your gold, give me money, give me whatever you have." And I could feel this blade, and he was quite agitated. And the more my mother started crying and screaming, the more agitated he got. And I could feel this blade going deeper and deeper into my neck. I had no idea what to do. I froze. So I closed my eyes, expecting it to pierce my neck. Because the neck is quite a thin, there's not much, there's hardly any fat. Well, there wasn't then. And then I could feel this blade going in, and I knew at any second it probably would go in. So I closed my eyes and I started calling on Swami. Swami, Swami, Swami. Suddenly, he got agitated and he withdrew the knife. And then he said to my mother, "Next time I ask you for something, you better give it or I will kill your son." And then he ran off down the street. That is the power of the name. That is the power of Swami. Shirdi Baba said, "My eye is ever on those who love me. Whatever you do, wherever you may be, ever bear this in mind. I am always aware of everything you do." Sometimes we pray to God and wonder, does He really listen to our prayers? Can you imagine how many people must be bending His ear for a favor? But words have tremendous power. They can arouse emotions and they can also calm them. They direct, they infuriate, they reveal, they confuse. They are potent forces that bring up great reservoirs of strength and wisdom in times of despair. In the Narada Puran, in this age of Kali, it says, "There is no other religion than glorifying the Lord by utterance of His holy name." And that is the injunction of all the revealed scriptures. There is no other way, there is no other way, and there is no other way. The name of the Lord is so powerful that it made stones float in Treta Yuga when Rama needed to cross Lanka. It transformed a robber into a great sage, Vashishta, and in this Kali age makes our Lord drop everything and come to our rescue. You are all familiar with Bhagavan when He goes into a trance. Now let me tell you about a time that I wanted to go and visit Swami. And back many years ago, it was very difficult to go to Swami, especially when we were in the foreign countries. Ticket prices were very expensive. Now, I didn't want to be a burden on my parents, and I didn't want to trouble them again, because I had already been to Swami when I was 16, and I wanted to go again. And I want to just give you this example where He really does listen when you pray with your full heart. And to be called to Prashanti is truly a gift that one should never take for granted. As Brother Balu said, we must make the most of our visits to Prashanti Nilayam. So I wanted to go to Prashanti and I started praying to Swami. And my prayer to Swami is, I don't want to inconvenience my parents. They are already doing so much for me, paying for my studies, paying for the home, paying for all the bills and everything. So I didn't want to be a burden on my parents. So I prayed to Swami, "Swami, you're my best friend. I want to come and see you. Please make it possible. Devotees, listen here. When you pray to Swami with a pure heart, he really does listen. When you yearn for our Lord with a deep sense of yearning, it is not one-way traffic. He does reciprocate. It is a dual carriageway. He loves us. He looks forward to seeing us and misses us when we do not go. I think I was at university at that time. A letter came through the post that the British government was doing a scholarship, that they would pay for any students to travel abroad and undertake some sort of research. So I thought, oh, okay. So I filled in this form, and the research that I put down that I wanted to go to Prashanti Nilayam to find out about Sathya Sai education in human values. Now I couldn't say Balvikas because they wouldn't understand what that was all about. And at the time there was a lot of work Swami was launching and doing around SSEHV. So I filled in this long application form about going to Prashanti, and I spoke about the 5 human values and everything that is happening in India in our institutes there. After some time, I get a letter from the Mayor of London, and I was invited to an interview that I had been shortlisted from 5,000 applications. 100 students from across the country were asked to come for an interview. So I was pretty naive at the time, thinking, okay, it's just going to be an informal chit-chat. So I was invited to the Lord Mayor's office in London, very grand building. So I walk into this room, and I was shocked to see there was a panel of 12 people. And in the middle of this panel was the Lord Mayor sitting with all his gold chains. And I think halfway across the hall, it was a big hall, in the middle there was a single chair. I was petrified. Oh my God, Swami, what do I do? Now, the words of my Balvikas Guru came to my mind at the time. Wherever you are, whenever you go, whenever you are stuck, you must simply say, Swami, please speak through me. Swami, please think through me. Swami, please act through me. So let's put him to the test on this one. So I sat down, and imagine, so I'm sitting here, and the panel was probably in the middle of this room, not even nearby. How intimidating. So then they started asking all sorts of questions about Prashanti Nilayam, about SSEHV, and you want to go to India. Why do you want to go in, somewhere, I think one of the persons said, a place that we've never even heard of. Tell us about this program, he didn't say brainwashing, but what is the impact of this education going to be on children? I had no idea how to answer this. Remember, at the time I was just a Balvikas Guru. I knew the stories of Lord Rama, Lord Krishna, Swami's life. I was not capable of answering all these very technical questions about SSEHV. And remember, I had only put that down because I was thinking of a free trip to India. And you will not believe the answers that came from my mouth. They were like a bullet. And every time I answered the questions, the technical questions, they were quite impressed. And they would prod me more, to a point where they started asking about, so who is Sathya Sai? And then I would talk about this, and I would talk about my experiences. The interview was only supposed to last 10 minutes. 1.5 hours later, I was totally exhausted, and they were very excited. So imagine, from 5,000 applicants to 100 shortlist, I thought this isn't really going to happen. I waited. Every day I would run down to the door to see when the post arrived. I would go through the post to see if there was anything. There was nothing. After 1 month, a letter came. And sometimes you get a feel, you sort of press the letter, see if, it's a positive response if it's a thick one with, there's going to be forms in there. It wasn't, it was a thin. I opened the form and it says, congratulations, you've won the prestigious Frank Denning Scholarship. We are going to pay for your entire trip to India, to Prashanti Nilayam. That's the power of Swami. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit more of what else Swami did. So I was over the moon. They were paying for my trip. And now I'm thinking, okay, so I've sort of given a white lie. I really just wanted to go and spend time with Swami. But now I've said that I have to do research. And there were some terms and conditions. Remember, devotees, the devil always sits in the terms and conditions. So as I was reading these terms and conditions, they wanted an actual project. Like they wanted a dissertation on SSCHV because they were so impressed by it. How on earth do I do this? Now, at the time, the international chairman was Sri Indulal Shah. So I wrote him a nice letter to say, I've won this very prestigious travel scholarship, and they want me to go to Prashanti Nilayam to do some research into SSCHV. I wasn't expecting a response because imagine when you're international chairman of the world, and if many of you, if you don't know in Dubai, he's not someone for responding to letters, especially from an unknown person in the back of beyond of London. You won't believe, within a week, I get a telegram from Mumbai, from Sri Indulal Shah, to say, received your letter, come and meet me in Mumbai, and I will speak to you. So I booked the flight. I landed up in Mumbai, and I had to spend 1 week with Indubai. So Indubai was a chartered accountant, so he had me coming to his office every day. I was, I think, staying at the opposite end of Mumbai, so it would take me 1.5 hours to get to his office. And for those of you who don't know Sri Indulal Shah, he is a very astute, very clever person, and he would drill me every day. It was 10 times worse than the panel interview that I had with the Lord Mayor. And he would ask all sorts of questions, and he would tell me about Swami and SSCHV. And then after 1 week of grilling me, he probably was checking me out to see, is he the real deal, or is he, whatever. And then he said, okay, now you must go to Puttaparthi. I will let Mr. Chakravarti know that you're coming. And I think at the time, Mr. Narayan was running the ashram. So he also sent a letter to Mr. Narayan. So I landed up in Puttaparthi. Accommodation wouldn't give me accommodation because I was a single fellow on my own. What to do? And then I thought, no, and I said to them in the accommodation, but Sri Indulal Shah has asked me to come. And I think, like they said, well, they haven't told me. We haven't received any communication. And I thought, oh, another test of Swamis. What to do? Thankfully, a group from UK had just turned up, and they saw my predicament. They could see that I didn't know what to do. It's like, where do I go? And then, they took me into their group, so I got the accommodation. The next morning, Swami was coming, and then he stopped in front of me, and he said, where is your group? Because I was wearing a scarf, and the group was coming later. I had gone a few weeks early, because they had made some arrangements for me to spend a summer in the primary school researching and speaking to a lot of the teachers on SSCHV. So Swami said, where's the group? So I said, Swami, no group, just me. And he said, go. And I went inside and had a beautiful, intimate discussion with Swami. Now I'm going to pause there because I'll come back to the stories on the interview later. But I want to touch on this notion, this importance of closeness, because I think it confuses many people, closeness with God. What is closeness? Now, these are things that Swami actually has said to many of our youths over the years, and what I've done, I've tried to condense it just so that you understand what Swami's interpretation of closeness is. So Swami says, what is closeness? Closeness gives us happiness. Closeness gives us joy. Closeness constructs love. You want to be close to your children. You want to be close to your partner. Yes, this closeness makes us very, very happy. We crave for it. In family circles, closeness means affection. Closeness is a sort of expression of concern, a longing for the beloved. That is the expression of closeness. Closeness is enjoyment. Closeness is comfort. Closeness means so many things to so many people. But in respect of Swami, it should be different. If anybody says to you, I am close to Swami, I am close to Baba, be very careful. You cannot claim to be close to Swami. It is a folly to think like this. To be close to Swami is only an imagination. To be close to God is an expression of pride. To be close to God is just an expression of ego. God is not an object. God is the subject. God is the phenomenon, not a person. However, what is spiritual closeness? Spiritual closeness is different from physical closeness. Physical closeness is proximity or nearness, whereas spiritual closeness is dearness. Spiritual closeness brings God, makes him walk towards you. Physical closeness demands that you run and occupy the front row in darshan. That's the reason why so many people fail. Spiritual closeness demands that stage when Swami himself will respond, when God himself will walk towards you and alerts you, apprises you, and says yes. He elevates you. I think he finds himself within you. That is what you call spiritual closeness. Spiritual closeness is humility. It is so humble. Spiritual closeness is what we call adoration, respectfulness, reverence, friendliness, loveliness, not merely a friend. Kindly understand, physical closeness can make you a friend, but spiritual closeness will develop a quality of friendliness. But for spiritual closeness, there are no requirements of time or space. God has to present himself anytime you want him to, anytime you demand, anytime you call for him. He's at your beck and call, at your doorstep, because the switch is in your hand. This holding of the switch, that you're in a state of company with the Lord, that you can flick on and off, it is a switch. And it reminds me of a story. And I'm going to take you back to Prashanti back in the late 80s, in the 90s, when there was no concrete, there was no Saikulwant Hall. And we used to sit on the sands. And it reminds me of the devotion that the people used to have during, those times. And I remember sitting on the sands, and Swami used to normally come out at 4 o'clock on the dot. We would start lining up at 2 o'clock. So there was a big performance. You used to queue outside, you used to pick a chit, and then you used to go inside. Now, if you managed to get the first row, it was like ecstasy. So this time we were sitting in the middle, and it was very grey, and the clouds had gathered. Any minute, it looked like there was going to be thunderstorm. And then it started raining. And it rained, and it rained. And the Sevadals came, and they started telling everybody to go. Nobody would move. Some people went, but generally the devotee sat there in pin-drop silence, refusing to move. The rains got worse. There was downpour. There was a bit of lightning. There was a huge downpour, but not many of the devotees moved. That when I looked at them, their devotion, it was really like seeing a scene of the gopis. And they just sat there. They didn't move, they didn't flinch, they didn't try to cover their hair. And Swami came out in that downpour just on the ledge, and he looked, and it was pouring with rain. And then he shooed it like that. And then suddenly, within minutes, it stopped raining. And then suddenly, just above him, the clouds started breaking. And forth from that break in the clouds, this beautiful rainbow, this beautiful sunlight pour forth. He responded to the devotion of all those people sitting there. Our devotion can melt Swami's heart. That is real spiritual closeness. It reminds me of another story. We were in Kodaikanal, and Kodaikanal was very, very beautiful, the darshan that you got there. Now, in Kodaikanal, we used to queue up outside Swami's house, just next to the lake at 4 o'clock in the morning. And the weather was like London. It was cold. You'd have to wear socks, thermals, shawls. It was really freezing. And in Kodaikanal, Swami would come out at 8:30. So you can see it's quite a long wait. So we would wait outside, and they would let you into the compound, and we sat there. And then it started raining. And there was just a bit of shower. Now the Sevadals didn't know what to do, because if it continues to rain, there's no shade there, Swami will get wet. So they told us to go, that there is no darshan that morning. So with a heavy heart, all the people assembled, they left the hall. They left, the darshan area. Now, that afternoon, I was talking to one of the coordinators of the Sevadal that I knew. And he told me that Swami was very angry when he came out. So at 8:30 on the dot, imagine, Swami came out and he walked a little bit and he had seen that the hem of his robe had got wet. So he went back inside to change. Now what had happened, when he went back inside, the Sevadal thought Swami is not happy, and they sent all of us away, thinking that there's no darshan. But then Swami changed his robe and he came back out. So Swami came back out, the doors opened, and he was, where are they all? And then Swami started banging, telling off the head Sevadal, where are my devotees? Why did you tell them to go? I never sent any message to end darshan. And he said, because of your incompetence and because my devotees have missed one day of darshan, I am washing away all their sins for a whole lifetime. Imagine that. Just because we missed one darshan, Swami actually said, I am washing all their sins of one lifetime. So from this you can see the power of darshan. From this you can see the power of connection. Now I'm going to be speaking about the Prashanti connection later on, but that's the power. Never take his darshan in the physical form or the unseen form for granted. Because when we look at Swami, you do not know what changes, what transformation he's bringing. Now, I told you Swami was my best friend. He is my best friend. And I was 16 when I first met Swami. Now, when I was 16, and we were sitting right at the back in darshan in the afternoon. And our center president, he was a bit of a gung-ho center president. He had great devotion. And that's why center leaders, your role is so important, because Balvikas kids like me, youth like me, young adults like me, we look up to you. So your conduct as leaders is so important because we follow you. Now, in this case, my center president shouldn't have been followed, because as Swami was coming, he stood up and he said, Swami. And Swami looked at him and he said, go. Now, that night, he'd had a dream that Swami had come to him and said, be ready, I'm going to call your group in the morning, in the afternoon. So that's why he got up and said, go. So we all went in. So I sat down, and the very first question that Swami asked me, who is your best friend? So I looked at Swami and said, Swami, only you. He looked at everyone in the interview room and he said, see, this young boy has never met Swami before, physically. Yet he has made Swami his best friend. He's never met me until today. And then he said, that is the love that each one of us should have with God. You should make him your best friend. You know, we think we have best friends in life, but when they let us down, when they break our expectations and upset us very much, they really let us down. But really what Swami wants us to do, he wants us to make God your best friend. Because he never lets you down. He will always listen to you. He will always fulfill your wishes, but only at the right time. Now, I'm going to give you some stories that happened in the interview room. In this one, the one when I went for the scholarship, because I know some of you have asked, what's it like when you meet Swami? Now, when I walked into the interview room, I used to suffer a lot from mouth ulcers. I think in America you call them, is it canker sores or something like that? So I had, being in Puttaparthi, in the late 80s, there was no Western canteen, there was no Punjab canteen. We had to suffer the South Indian canteen. Being a Guju, not used to eating so much rice, not used to the spices. In a Gujarati family, you eat more chapatis, and the rice is probably just that much. And so you can imagine the look of horror when we used to sit in the South Indian canteen, and they would keep pouring the rice. In a Gujarati family, that one portion that they give you of rice could feed a family of 10. That's how much rice. So we were not used to this. So anyway, I walk into the interview room with a mouth of ulcers, and Swami has me sit right in front of him. And he says to me, "Boy, what do you want?" And I was so shocked. Now, I had heard about this. Now, remember, growing up, I used to read a lot of books. And I really urge Balvikas children and young adults, why don't people read books anymore? And I used to love reading Swami books, listening to everybody's experiences. Now, you're all very lucky because you have YouTube. You've got people like, Sister Geeta who come and tell you all these wonderful stories of Swami. When I was growing up, I had none of that. But I used to avidly read lots and lots of Swami books. So Swami said to me, and I had prepared this question, because, people always say, sometimes in an interview, Swami will ask you, what do you want? So it's like a boon when he asks you that. So I had come prepared. I had a bit of a checklist. Maybe I will ask for this. Maybe I will ask for that. I wasn't sure, but I wasn't expecting him to ask me, what do you want? So Swami said to me, what do you want? So I said, I'd prepared for this, and I said, Swami, please can I have a ring? I always wanted a ring. Because, you used to see the elders with a Swami ring. And you know what Swami said? Your wife will give you a ring. And I was so disappointed. He broke my heart. Then there was a little bit of chit-chat. This couple had come from Delhi, and they had a little baby. Swami said to this couple, Larki ka naam kya hai? In Hindi, what is the name of the girl? And they said, Swami, you have to give a name. And they said that we've called her something, it's a temporary name. So Swami said, why temporary? Make it permanent. I can't remember the pet name that they had given her. But then Swami said, okay, call her Akhladini. Call her Akhladini. Then he waved his hand right in front of me. So I was sitting in front of him. And he materialized, in Gujarati families, they put these little, like a bracelet on babies when they're born, and they have black beads so you don't get the evil eye. So Swami materialized a very small chain with these little beads. It was about this big. So I was thinking it must be for this little girl's hand. He told the family to come forward. Now, bearing in mind this is my first whole experience of seeing God in action, Swami took this little necklace that was this big, and it had 3 strands of gold chain, very thin. It was literally this big. In front of me, he put it in front of me, he started pulling this gold. The ball started multiplying. The chain started multiplying. So from this size, it became the whole size of the baby. And he told them to come forward, and he put it around this baby. So now, she must be in her 40s, and this must be a long necklace that this beautiful young Akhladini must be wearing. So that was one story. Then there was a young boy in our group, and he used to stutter. Now, when you're young, when people stutter, it's the worst thing. And the worst thing you can do when a young person stutters is finish their sentence. So our center president said to Swami, Swami, this poor boy has a stutter. And Swami looked at him. Without touching him, without doing anything, Swami said, slight adjustment karna hai. And like he was turning the knob of a radio station, he said, slight adjustment karna hai. And he did like this in the air, like he was fine. And the boy, after the interview, he told us he felt some cord in his mouth was tightening. After the interview, he never stuttered again. Then, it reminds me of another story. Within that interview, some lady had come in a wheelchair. Okay, so this person had never walked before. So Swami went up to this lady and said, get up. Now, that's quite embarrassing. When you've never walked, and Swami's saying, get up. He said it a few times. She wouldn't get up. And poor lady, is sitting there thinking, Swami, what do I do? You're telling me to get up, but I can't get up. To the point where Swami got up of his chair, he went up to her, he waved his hand like this, he materialized Vibhuti, and he hit it on her knee like that. And the lady screamed because she didn't know what was happening. Then he said, get up. And then he got 2 volunteer ladies to help her, and he made her get up. And she stood up. And then he said, he went one step further, remove the wheelchair. And then this lady actually walked out of the interview room after having never walked. Swami gave her feedback. That's the majesty, that's the power of our Lord. Now I come back to halfway through the interview. Swami again says to me, "What do you want, boy?" So I thought, okay, the ring thing's not going to work, so I can't ask for anything physical. So then I said, "Swami, Shakti, Bhakti or Mukti?" Swami was very surprised. He said, "Oh, you are asking for so much." And he said, he looked at me up and down and he said, "But you have so much Shakti." Then he said, "What is Bhakti?" So I said, "Devotion." And he said, "No, Bhakti is love for God." And then he said very sweetly, "Okay, so you want something to wear off, Swamis." He started waving his hand, and suddenly something burst out of his hand and flew halfway across the interview room, and he caught something again with his hand. And in his hand, he materialized a silver bracelet, and then he started explaining that this bracelet has 5 very holy metals. Now the thing that shot out of his hand that went halfway across the interview room, they passed it to the front, and it was a coin of Swami with his face on it on one side, silver coin, and there was a Om on the other side. Swami literally, I had a white shirt with a zip. He opened the zip, he put this thing in my pocket because I hadn't seen clearly what it was, and he closed it. And then he carried on talking to the rest of the devotees. Now coming back to the mouthful of ulcers, because at this point it was starting to hurt. And during the conversation, Swami would ask questions. Swami is very jovial, he's very sweet, he's very different to how you see him in darshan. In darshan, he's quite scary, but that's when he's majestic, he's the super omnipresent, he's the Lord of the universe, when he's walking amongst us. But in the interview room, he's so different. He laughs and he giggles, he makes jokes. And throughout the conversation, he would slap me if I said the wrong thing. He would slap me again. And it became really funny. I mean, I constantly getting all these slaps. And then, the other thing that I'm reminded of, as a child, I used to suffer from stomach upsets. Now, parents, when your child says to you that you have a tummy ache, please don't disregard it and send them to school. Sometimes it really could be a stomach ache. So I used to have lots of stomach aches. My parents used to think I'm just trying to get a day off school, but it wasn't the case. So if you remember, so Swami put me in front of him, and during the conversation with people in the interview room, what he would do is, I'm just going to show you what he would do. He would kick me in the stomach. And I'm thinking, what a interesting God this is. He would talk, and while he's talking to people, he would just kick me in the stomach. Just like that with his foot. And it was like, okay, does he want me to say something? Does he want me to, give a talk or something? But he did it a few times. Brothers and sisters, I never ever had a stomach upset after that kicks. And when I walked out of the interview room, the mouthful of ulcers that I had disappeared. The other thing that he did in that interview room, I have a sweet, if you know me, that I have a very sweet tooth. So yesterday when the Mysore pak was being served, I was very, very lucky that I got a second piece. And it reminded me, in the interview room, Swami made a comment about me liking sweets. And he said, "Do you want a sweet?" And I was like, "Yes, Swami." And then he started waving his hand. And then he took something like this, and he opened his hand, and in his hand was a Mysore pak dripping with ghee. And then Swami said, "See, I'm giving you hot Mysore pak." And then he gave me a piece, and I put it in my mouth, and then he asked me, he put the Mysore pak in my hand, and we walked around the interview room as he gave a little piece of the Mysore pak. Now, in that time, it was a hot Mysore pak. His hand was covered in ghee. Now, ladies, when any drops of ghee touch your saris, you get very upset, especially with your son or your husband, if by accident even any oil or ghee touches your beautiful silk saris. Swami was wearing a beautiful cotton silk robe. He sat down, and on his robe, he just wiped his hand like that. You will not believe there was not one stain. There was no oil stain at all. And this was the wonderful experience of, being with Swami, being very fortunate. It reminds me of another story. So I'm going to give you all these stories because I know time is short and there's lots and lots of things I wanted to tell you, but I know speaking to you over the last few days, a lot of the young adults and a lot of the people, devotees were asking me, what goes on in the interview room. So I'm going to hit you with it and then I will finish. So this reminds me of another incident. And this incident it's a time when Swami took me and my wife Rita to the most darkest point in my life ever. It was to the abyss and back. And it was a really dreadful challenge, obstacle that we have ever faced. And it was a real test of faith, of devotion, of love for God. Which is why I am telling each one of you, when you are challenged, do not give up. You should become even more persistent. Your devotion and your faith in Swami must become like titanium. Do not give up. So let me give you some context to what this test, this challenge was. In 2001, after Swami's birthday, the day after, 24th of November, we were called in for an interview, quite unexpectedly. So Swami sat and spoke in the interview room. There was Parveena Sultan, there was Dana Gillespie, there were quite a few people, and it was really amazing. Swami materialized this amazing, he has tiny hands, and he materialized this great big gold choker. It was enormous from his hand. And he's such a trickster. He waved it in front of Parveena Sultana's face, and she was like, Swami, is this for me? And then Swami said, are you jealous? And then he gave it to somebody else. So poor Parveena Sultan, he was teasing her. Anyway, let's get to the main bit. So Swami took us into the inner interview room. So we sat down, and Swami said, come back next year with son. And we were thinking, okay, we had been married for 5 years. We didn't have any children. So for Swami to proclaim, next year, come back with son, we were trying to do the maths and thinking it's not possible because religiously we always came back in April because of the Kodaikanal trips. We never wanted to miss the Kodaikanal trips. So then he looked at my wife Rita and he said, he did like this, little complication, but now everything is okay. So he did like this, unlike his, unscrewing, unblocking something. Little complication there is there, but now everything is okay. He just did it with his hand like that. So we walked out, and then come April, we came back. My wife was expecting, okay? So we came back. Swami hadn't left for Kodaikanal. We were in Whitefield. We were very lucky. Out of the blue, Swami called us in for an interview room. Now, for those of you who don't know, my wife is not as big as me. She's very small, very petite, very slim build. So as we walked into the interview room, we were sitting, and you know how these ladies, they wear all the silk saris, so they're completely covered up. So no one would know that she was expecting, and she was only expecting, it had only been 3 months, so it's not something you would, tell everybody. As Swami came in, even before he looked at us or saw Rita or anything, how he closes the door, bolts the door. He looked at my wife and said, how many months? My wife was, didn't know what to say. Because, when Swami sometimes says, as, the speakers were saying, yesterday, Mr. Nagan was saying, sometimes it's best to remain silent. Then Swami sat down, I was sitting next to him, and he looked at me and he said, I know she wants a boy. And then there was a bit of a chit-chat, and then he took us into the inner interview room. And then something quite profound happened. I said to Swami, Swami, we surrendered this child at your lotus feet. We offer it to you because we're so grateful. And gratitude to God is so important. Swami closed his eyes, and it must have been almost 5 or 10 minutes where, have you ever read in a book when Swami goes into a trance? He literally leaves his body. Swami went into a trance, but his hands were moving, and he was in a trance, closing his eyes, and he was doing like this. Like the whole past, present, future of whoever was flashing between, like he was reading a book or watching, like on a divine tablet, someone's life going through. He came back from his trance and he said, "Have no fear, this child is my responsibility." So we were thought, okay, that's lovely. We got a blessing from Swami. Now fast forward, the child, my son, was supposed to be born in November on the day of my birthday. It was a boy, we'd had the scan, and as Swami had said, that, she wants a boy, he made it so. Now, a month before the birth of my son, we had to go for a scan because Rita hadn't been feeling well. She had this really sinking feeling that something was not right. It had been 8 months. So we went for this 8th month scan. And you're taken in and they do the scan, and we were expecting this person who does the scan to say something, and they took a long time doing the scan. And it doesn't normally take this time. And then she said, "If you just hold on, I just need to check something." And we started getting very worried. And then another gentleman came in, some consultant, and he started doing, the scan, and he said, "I think we have a problem. This child has not been developing. There is insufficient amniotic fluid in the stomach. We think this child may have died because the heartbeat we can't pick up. And because there was less amniotic fluid in the stomach, it won't be, it's too small to do surgery, but we will need to take you to the hospital to give birth." So my wife started crying. We came out of the clinic. I started shaking. I didn't know what to do. We hailed a black cab, and they said, "Go to A&E straight away, to accident and emergency." We went to accident and emergency. They took her in. They got her all on the wires, and we were told to prepare for the worst. This child basically, is semi-alive and may not make it. So it was too late to operate or do anything. So we were put in a holding room. My wife was on the bed. I didn't know what to do, so I just started praying. I just started calling on Swami. Now remember, I don't dream of Swami like I've said to you. I've just had the 1 or 2 quite vivid dreams that I've shared with you. That night, in the hospital, Swami came into my dream. He was walking down a wooden staircase. He looked at me, he started waving his hand, and water started pouring out of his hand. And he told me to clench my hands like this. The water started pouring, and out from his hand plopped a great big shivling that I caught. And he said, "Don't worry, everything will be okay." So I quickly woke up and I said, "Rita, Swami's just come," and he said, "Everything will be okay." So the next morning the consultants came, and you will not believe there was no beds available in the hospital in central London that we were. So they couldn't do the operation. Then there was talk of sending us via helicopter to Scotland to do this special operation, because in London, for some reason, there were no beds available. Can you believe it? So then I thought, okay, Swami, we don't want to go to Scotland. Then I remembered we have private medical insurance. So I said, "Doctors, will this help?" They said, "Well, why didn't you tell us this before?" They made some inquiries, and then we were told to go to a hospital. But the problem was it was 6 o'clock at night. No ambulances were available. They were all out. So then they had to call a private ambulance, and imagine, so you know the sign, the Westminster Big Ben, traffic is coming this way, our private ambulance is going in the opposite direction, because we had to get to the private hospital before the consultant finished for the day. So we got there to this, it was called, the Portland Hospital. It was a private hospital that I had never heard of. But when we got there, we were told, "You're in the best place, because this is the place where Princess Diana had her child." It's the place where the royal family, of the UAE and royal families all have their children. So we were thought, wow, what grace from Swami, how he's looking after us. We get there, And then, they do all the procedures. They wheel us into the theatre room. The doctor was quite funny. He said, "Do you want to play any music while we do the surgery?" Because, doctors, I did not know this. You play pop music in the theatre. So the doctor said, otherwise, your child is going to be born listening to pop music. So thankfully, at the time in Rita's bag, she had a CD of Swami, if you all know the words embodiment of love, with Swami doing, these beautiful chants, Vedic chants to music. So she gave this to the doctor. So imagine the scene now. We're in the theatre, the doctors are all in their scrubs, Swami's voice is booming, singing these Vedic mantras. The doctors are looking at each other thinking, what is going on here? But then you get to the serious bit where they tell you, we are now going to operate, the child will come out, it may move, it may not move, you have to prepare for this. They did the operation, a child, they had told us the child will be literally this small, because remember, it hadn't been growing. When they brought the child out, this sausage-like young person came out that big, but there was no movement. He didn't cry, he didn't move. For a few minutes, there was pin-drop silence, and we expected the worst. I said, Swami. Suddenly, he started crying, screaming, and there was our little baby Sai alive. Against all medical, theories that they had said, Swami had saved this child. Now, there is a tailpiece to this. During the World Youth Conference in 2007, we got there early. And a week before the youth conference, Swami called Dr. Goldstein. And for a long time, Swami was talking to Dr. Goldstein. Swami was on the podium, and it was about 15 minutes. Now, I was thinking, this is good. Swami must be giving instructions of what we need to do for the World Youth Conference. And then suddenly, you could see Dr. Goldstein coming, and Dr. Goldstein was some of this, but he's like, whatever Swami says, he tries to carry it out to the letter, and he comes running towards me while Darshan Bhajans is going on, and he was panting, and he was saying, Swami spent just 15 minutes talking to me. I did not understand a word he was saying, but all I understand was he kept saying, 5 years ago I was with Mrs. Chudasama. 5 years ago, I was with Mrs. Chudasama. That's how Swami said it. He said, does that mean anything to you? What does that mean? 5 years ago, I was with Mrs. Chudasama. 2007, my son was about to turn 5. And Swami was giving the assurance that he was with us. And he was telling Dr. Goldstein. And Swami had told Dr. Goldstein that he wanted Rita to narrate this story during the World Youth Conference. She narrates this story much better than mine, but the underlying story is Swami can do anything. When you have intensity, when you have love, when you have faith in him, and this is what I want all the youth to understand. You don't have to have seen him. You don't have to be physically with him. You don't need interviews. You just have to have intensity. Why am I standing here narrating all these stories? Because my relationship with Swami was one of friendship. It was one of intensity. I used to love playing archery when I was at school. What are the tenets of archery? You have to get the bullseye. Even with God, you always have to aim for the bullseye. How do you aim for the bullseye of his heart? You have to pray. You have to have intensity. You know what I used to do when I tried to get Swami's attention, I used to wake up every day at 4 o'clock in the morning. While everybody was asleep in the house, I would go to my prayer room, I would light a diya. Now, I remember when I was young, I was not well versed in Vedas, in prayers. I had a handful of prayers that my Balvikas gurus had taught me. So I would sing these prayers to Swami. I would do my Jyoti meditation, and then I had a small photo in our prayer room. I would pick it up and I would hug it. That's all I did for a number of years. Every day at 4 o'clock, and I would tell Swami whatever I needed to. Swami, I'm having this problem with my French teacher. I hate French. Please do something. She just doesn't like me. And from that, the next day, the French teachers would start being nice to me. The dialogue was there. I'm going to tell you something quite intimate. The very first interview that I had, when I walked into the room, you know what Swami did? He grabbed me in the interview room and hugged me. The same way that I used to hug that photo. See, he knows. He knows. He knew that I used to hug him every day like this. And in the interview room, the first thing he did, as we were walking in, he took me and grabbed me like this. So really it's up to you. Your relationship with Swami is up to you. All these elders will guide you on what is the right thing to do, what is the wrong thing to do. But ultimately, you cannot blame anybody. If you want to be close to Swami, if you want him to love you, if you want to experience his majesty, then you have to put in the effort, because it is a divine romance. Now, I want to share you another story of the World Youth Conference. During the World Youth Conference, 6,000 young people from over the world had assembled. And we had so many challenges. When you are serving Swami, you have to be ready for obstacles and challenges. I suddenly get the news that the 800-strong delegation from Nepal had all got chickenpox in their shed. Oh, Swami, what do we do? Chickenpox is something that spreads. On the one hand, we had 6,000 youth from international countries and 800 youth in the sheds with the Nepalese having chickenpox. Dr. Goldstein went and told Swami. Swami gave a handful of vibhuti, and then Dr. Goldstein told me, here is a handful of vibhuti that Swami wants you to distribute to all the young people in the sheds. We did that. Within 2 days, we don't know how, the chickenpox epidemic completely went. There was no trace of it. It was unbelievable. Even when the doctors did their tests, there was no trace of it. That's the power of Swami. It reminds me, we had a really beautiful workshop yesterday with Dr. Akshay, a leadership workshop in the room. And there was a lot of talk about bhajan singing. There was a lot of talk about the quality of bhajan singing. And one thing that I would like to stress is that I know that all of you devotional coordinators, you love to give Swami the best bhajans at all of your centers. Now, when we were growing up in Balvikas, we had to sing. Whether you were good or whether you were bad, we were told you have to sing. And that was the discipline that we always had. We sang at bhajans. Thankfully, there was no bhajan practice back in the day. But they trained you. And if you didn't sing well, you used to get in trouble afterwards. But they taught you, and our gurus really did spend a lot of time making you sing. So I had grown up singing. So when I used to take all these pilgrimages of young people to Swami, we used to take musical programs, and with Swami's love, he would let the youth perform. Now, one such trip, we had a boys program and a girls program. And the thing that we used to do was we had to send a CD to Prashanti, and they would vet the CD. I got the news back that the girls' program had been accepted and the boys' program had been rejected. Now, how do I tell our young adults? 200 youth strong going from London to Puttaparthi. And you know how the young people, they solely focus on bhajan singing. And I've got to tell you, if you want to love Swami, it is not just about bhajan singing. So what do? I didn't want to break the hearts of the young boys. So what I got them to do was, we did all-night bhajans. We got them to pray to Swami. I don't care what bhajan you sing, we started at 6 in the evening, we finished at 6 in the morning, and all they had to do was sing bhajans and pray to Swami for their musical program to be accepted. That was done. We went to Prashanti, and the very first day, Swami asked me, what program have you brought? I said, Swami, there's girls' program and the boys' program. Swami got the boys to sing, because their devotion had hit such a pitch. When you pray to Swami intensely, he really does listen. So the boys performed, Swami was very happy, and the arti was happening. As Swami's chair was going back into the car, he called me. And he said, music program was very good. But then he said to me, why didn't you sing? I was taken aback. Wow, Swami had remembered that I too was also a bhajan singer. Because with these young adults, it turns sometimes they become like a mafia. It's like a VIP group. Only the talented, the super brilliant youth can sing. And there was Swami. He had actually acknowledged that I could also sing, that he had been hearing. So Dr. Goldstein was sitting behind me on the portico. I went up to him. He had heard. He was in panic. His first thing he said to me was, "Oh Shitu, what have you done?" He was so panicked because, the piece I forgot to tell you, when Swami said, "Why didn't you sing?" He then said to me, "Be ready, I want you to sing in the afternoon." So, you know the rules. People don't get to sing in the afternoon with the Prashanti Mandir singers. Dr. Goldstein had heard this conversation. He started sweating profusely. He's saying to me, "Oh Shitu, what have you done? You are going to upset the whole thing. If you get this wrong, everybody is going to be sad. Swami is going to be very upset." He was in a real quandary. There was panic on the veranda because I had been asked to sing. So then I had to go through some auditions. So Dr. Goldstein and the team, the international team, was so worried that whole day I had to sit and just sing. So they got the professor of the music, the bhajan boys, and I was being auditioned. So I had to sing this bhajan. They said, what bhajan can you sing? So all I could think of was, one that I used to sing a lot was Chandravadana Kamalanayana. And when I used to sing this bhajan, I would really, I used to love Lord Vishnu. I would see those beautiful lotus eyes and really visualize this. So then, I sang in front of one Prashanti Mandir bhajan singer. Then they would bring another one. Every hour, this audition was happening. And it was the most stressful, nerve-wracking thing ever. Dr. Goldstein's worried that, oh my gosh, what is Swami going to say? He's going to be very upset. But not once did anybody have any confidence in me that I could actually sing. So Swami's car came, and I had been placed on the veranda. As he came, he put the window down and he said, "Are you ready?" He smiled. I smiled. Dr. Goldstein was sweating. Unhappy look on his face. We went inside to the mandir. Swami looked at me. "Are you ready?" The bhajan started, and there were also some other of the UK boys sitting next to me. Swami said, "London boys, Prashanti boys, all are my boys." Then, one after the other, then it came to my turn. I started singing Chandravadana, Kamalanayana, Narayana, Sai Narayana. Swami had his eyes closed. And in that bhajan, there is a crescendo. And while I'm singing, I'm looking at him, because never will this opportunity ever come again. And I'm thinking, and all sorts of thoughts are going through my mind. Am I singing right? What's Dr. Goldstein? This is going to be the end of my career serving Swami. But I'm looking at him, and he's in this wonderful trance-like fixation with beautiful eyes. His eyes were closed, and I started getting worried. He's not opening his eyes, but his eyes are closed. And suddenly there is a crescendo about, this words of Narayana, Narayana. And I started singing with all my might. Suddenly he opens his eyes, and there's this just huge, humongous power that comes out of his eyes into me. And I just felt so humbled. And it was one of the most beautiful things I've ever experienced. The tailpiece, obviously, the elders of the organization were all happy that I didn't fluff up, I didn't sing wrong. Swami was happy. And once again, Swami protected us. Swami is a great proponent of the young adults. We make so many mistakes, but he will come and tell us. But he will always never do it in public. And don't think, when you have proximity to Swami, when you are given the opportunity to be close with Swami, it's not all roses. Brothers and sisters, I've also been given interviews where he's called me on my own. He has taken me inside. He shouted at me. He's told me off. And do you know what I do when he tells me off like this? I just do one thing. So imagine he's standing in front of me. He's screaming. He's not screaming. He's shouting. He's telling me off. Why did you do it like this? He does it in a very beautiful way. And he does it in such a way that you just get so upset. And the way I pacify Swami, whenever he does that with me, I grab his waist and I just hug him with my head on his tummy, and that cools him down. And then he quickly changes like that. That is our Swami. His heart melts. When we can make 1,000 mistakes, but if that one piece of love, that one piece of, Swami, I'm trying, please give me another opportunity, it really melts his heart. Now, before I end, I've got 4 minutes. I would like to talk about a very important topic, connection to Prashanti. Connection to Prashanti is very important. Some may argue that realization can be found anywhere, but I reply back that realization is not something easy, it is more complex than the mind can fathom. Only a guru, only a true guru or a god, in our case Swami, can act as the catalyst to speed up the process. But you have to go to Prashanti and live it and get the benefits. Merely thinking about vitamin D or meditating on its benefits and thinking that of the sun, you will not get the nutrients that vitamin D can give you. You have to go into the sunlight. You have to absorb it. Only then can you take vitamin D into your system. In chapter 25 of the Sri Sai Charitra, Shirdi Baba says, "Believe me that though I will pass away, the bones in my tomb will give you hope and confidence. My tomb will be speaking, moving, and communicating with those who surround themselves wholeheartedly to me. Do not be anxious that I will be absent from your life. You will hear my bones speaking about and discussing your welfare. But remember me always. Believe in me, heart and soul, and then you will benefit greatly." In the Catholic Church, relics are very important. Famous saints are buried always. There's St. Peter's relic, his bones in the St. Basilica in Rome. St. Francis of Assisi has been buried in Assisi. That's where his remains, his bones are. St. Bernadette of Lourdes, where the miracles are still happening, where hundreds and thousands of pilgrims from the Catholic Church flock there, still experiencing miracles of St. Bernadette's bones. In India, we have these Shakti pits. You know the story of Sati. When she emulated into the fire, and when Lord Shiva came and he took her, and bits of her body fell into various parts of India. Vaishno Devi, it is said in Jammu that the skull of Sati is there. Kalighat, in Kolkata, it is said, her toe fell. Ambaji in Gujarat, it is said that's where her heart fell. These are Shakti Peeths. They are very, very powerful centers in India. Last month we were in India, and I had the good fortune of visiting one of these Shakti Peeths. It is said that the Sati's upper lip fell there. And it's in a cave. You have to walk 500 steps to get to this temple. It's in a mountain. And to get into the mountain, the hole is only this big. Look at my size. You literally have to crawl completely on the ground to get into this cave. And when you get into this cave, there is this beautiful idol of Devi. And the power within that mountain, that cave, is just so electrifying. That's so powerful. So these are relics. These are really important pieces. Now, Prashanti Nilayam. You don't just have a toe or an arm or a heart or a head. You have our beautiful Lord who is there, who is still alive. And we hear from so many young adults who travel to Prashanti Nilayam that when they go and when they touch that holy Mahasamadhi, when they kiss that Mahasamadhi, the youth, the young adults that go who don't have a job, they come back and find out they have a job. If they're looking for a partner, they come back and suddenly they found, someone. If they have an illness, they touch that Mahasamadhi. Imagine the power. Imagine the power that is in Prashanti Nilayam. So whenever you speak to anybody, my heartfelt prayer for you is to tell them the power that lies in Prashanti, because Swami is still alive. He's still guiding us. He's still watching us. He's still loving us. Jai Saram.